For a long time, I did not dare to talk about my deepest, most painful feelings. I thought maybe my pain would make at least some of the so-called divorcees think that by starting a relationship with a married man, they hurt another woman, destroying her soul, her faith in love and faithfulness, in family values. I have been living in hell for almost 2 years. When my husband admitted to cheating, my brain refused to accept this new reality. I couldn't understand how, after 17 years of a perfect marriage filled with love and trust, this could happen. Everyone thought we were the perfect couple. In 17 years, we hadn't even fought. We had a lot of good and bad things in our lives. Envious people did not stop writing various denunciations about us to all the authorities, wherever they could. But it was only thanks to our unity that we were able to go through many years of trials and press harassment, etc. My husband was everything to me. Husband, lover, friend, and even daddy. Yes, sometimes I turned into his little girl and we joked about it. We were together all the time, but in spite of that, we couldn't get enough of each other. We were interesting together. My husband was the universe to me. I trusted him like I had never trusted anyone before. When he went away on business trips, the world ceased to exist for me. Once, I had to go away, and I was gone for over a month. We called each other several times a day, talking for hours and sobbing into the phone. The separation seemed unbearable. My husband, despite the age difference, always told me that he was a one-woman man, that I was the only woman in his life that he loved, and would always love only me. To my desire to get plastic surgery, he always answered, "I need you anyway, but alive." And I believed him, believed in his love, and never doubted his faithfulness for a minute. Yes, of course, as in all marriages, and we had crises, there were periods of cooling off, but we worked through it, and successfully dealt with all the difficulties in our way. So after all that, how could my brain accept the new reality? A few years ago, an unfortunate thing happened to me. I injured my spine. I couldn't move. The pain was terrible. During this period, a sexual relationship between us couldn't happen for obvious reasons. My husband supported me, took care of me. We went through many clinics. Gradually, I began to recover. And then, when I was almost recovered, he admitted to cheating on me. Of course, I understood that a young, handsome, and sexy man had to make up for the lack of sex somehow. But I always told him that if something like that happened, I didn't want to know about it. My husband and I met late. I was already 45, so we didn't have any children together. And then he admits that there is a woman in St. Petersburg who loves him and wants to have a child with him. But everything will remain the same between us. Like, a baby won't change anything. The woman is very wealthy and will be able to give the child everything he needs. I loved and understood my husband so much that I agreed to let another woman have a baby with my husband. How could I deny the man I love the opportunity to be a father? Now I want to tell you about that woman on the other side of my reality. Men are blind, and they don't see the traps that women who hunt for other men's husbands set for them. I'll tell you my whole story. I'll share with you my thoughts, my pain. As girls, we dream of meeting our prince, the only one who will love, care for, and of course, he will be faithful. And here it is, the long-awaited wedding. Who among us, getting married, has not dreamed that happiness will last a lifetime? But no. Those who have not found, not met, or lost their only soulmate, or do not enjoy success with free men, have already opened a hunt for someone else's husbands. And now these hunters, ready for absolutely everything, for any kind of sexual services, lies, manipulations, are waiting at your door to take away your love, happiness, faith, hope, dreams. They are on guard to take your place everywhere, in bed, in the house, in the car, and most importantly, in the heart and life of the man you love. Men are polygamous by nature. There is a hunter living in them who is always on the lookout for free sex services. Look at the number of unsuccessful men on the dating site looking for new entertainment. Only they don't realize that they have to pay a high price for this as they think, free sex entertainment. And first of all, they pay for their pleasures with the peace, health, and happiness of their wives. A woman who is in demand and respects herself will never go to bed with a married man. She will not start a relationship that is initially based on lies, pain, and deceit. The woman with whom my husband cheated on me sat on dating sites for a long time to no avail. Such ladies often go to various courses to improve their sexual skills, manipulate, and control men, and some of them even took hypnosis courses. And all in order to get your husband and the long-awaited status of a wife. First, they crawl into your bed then, pretending to be in love, using all their knowledge acquired at the courses or in other people's beds, and sometimes a love-making magic sees your husband. This is where Her Majesty Lies comes into play. He lies that there is no sex with his wife for a long time, no love, and he is ready to leave for her, but wait a little. She pretends to believe him, plays the best and most understanding friend, satisfies all his sexual fantasies, but constantly says that she feels very bad without him. And when he leaves, the world collapses, etc. Sex with your husband isn't enough for her. She intends to take everything away from you. I know a lot of people think it's only the man's fault in stories like this. I partly agree with you, but let's not take responsibility away from those women who, knowing that the man has a family, brazenly climb into bed with them, invent various tricks to lure the adventurer into their net, and then break up your family. After 17 years of what I thought was a happy marriage, a snail crawled into my life, alone and unclaimed by men. One day on a dating site, she found my husband. We were going through a tough time at the time. I hurt my back, I couldn't move, and my husband, and I forgot all about sex. Plus, my husband was looking for a job. The fact that she was the CEO of an 8 company apparently drew attention to her. From their initial and subsequent correspondence, it is clear that he started dating her specifically for the purpose of getting a job. The phrase "take me to work for you" flashed throughout their correspondence. But this grabby lover of other people's husbands skillfully shifted the business correspondence into the direction she wanted, with an offer of sex. And she succeeded. She turned into a goldfish, fulfilling any sexual fantasy. As it turned out, she hid from everyone that the man was married. On the contrary, she introduced him everywhere as her future husband. And at the fertility clinic, where she had dragged my husband, they had already introduced themselves as a married couple. My husband confidently told them that she was his wife. She drove in my seat in our white Mercedes without remorse, calling him at night when we were making love at the same time. Of course, these calls were deliberately nocturnal. I would find pins in my husband's things when he returned from St. Petersburg, but she convinced her husband that I did it, and he believed her, not me. She made up stories for my husband that I was sending her cursing letters and phone calls, playing the innocent victim. I couldn't recognize my husband. It was as if he was completely compelled by her. By the way, I honestly wrote to this woman that if she continued to destroy my family, not very pleasant actions on her part would follow. But she continues, hence, I am granted the right to all my actions. It's no secret to all of us women that when a woman really wants to have a baby with a man she loves, she gets pregnant first and then tells the man about it. Even inexperienced young girls do this. But when a 45-year-old intelligent lady, a programmer, starts out by saying that she's going to have a baby, it's obvious that she's not going to have a baby and she knows it. But people tend to believe and see only what they want. And the husband believed this obvious lie. Is it a funny story? After all, everyone understands her scheme. First, she made him see her as the future mother of their child. Then she introduced herself as a married couple in the hospital, and in the man's mind, there is a persistent image of this woman as his wife. And then, by requiring him to come to her every month to conceive, she simply tied the man to herself. And the scheme worked. My husband only told me about her when they were already clients at the fertility clinic. The lady didn't let up. She started putting on this sort of show of her future husband to her acquaintances, She gathered at her place to have a poker game or a pelmeni party to introduce someone else's husband as her fiancé. I was trying to get out of my life. I learned what panic attacks were. I had fainting spells, tantrums, loss of consciousness, heart attacks. I was in the hospital with a suspected stroke and a heart attack at the same time. I left home in the freezing cold and tried to freeze, lying on an icy bench. Lived in her son's apartment for more than a month. I wrote letters to her, telling her how hard it was for me and asking her not to ruin my family. But she is not a woman, and she has no feelings, no sympathy, no conscience, no decency. She is a cold and selfish machine, achieving her goal by any means. She is stubbornly crawling to her goal for the status of a wife, and she doesn't care about other people's pain. My husband cried with me and told me he loved us both and couldn't do anything about it. He asked me to accept the situation as it was. But I, unlike the separated woman, was not ready for a relationship in a triangle. I did not choose this path and this fate. She, on the other hand, knowing that the man was married, entered into the relationship. She knew and was aware of what she was getting into. Her husband was also consciously looking for a mistress, and I was held hostage by their choice. And I can't understand why they enjoy life. Why are they having fun? Why is she living with my husband in fancy hotels in India and enjoying the Maldives? Why do I suffer for their choices? Why did the closest, most beloved, and most family man so easily break all of his vows made to me? I am the woman who is used to being the only one for her man. I had 4 previous marriages before this marriage, and I had always been surrounded by the attention of interesting men. I didn't have a need to live in a triangle before. My ego is not ready or willing to accept a situation where the man I love is hanging out for phone calls and texting on the pretext of going out for a smoke, or locking themselves in the bathroom for long periods of time. They make their plans behind my back. This year, my husband had a long business trip to India. He called every day from there, complaining about how hard it was for him there, the terrible heat, very spicy food, and so on. I offered to come, but he said, "You can't make it here, and I'm worried about you." But, as it turned out, this woman had been with him there in India the whole time. From there, he, somehow unexpectedly, flew to the Maldives, sort of went scuba diving for a few days. To my questions, "Who are you there with?" he assured me that he was there alone, that he was living in a cheap hotel. As it turned out, they lived in a luxury expensive hotel, a villa for honeymooners. I do not know what they said at check-in, but in the paperwork later, I found a congratulatory letter from the manager of the hotel on their honeymoon. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a ceremony there, but I didn't know anything about it until a friend of hers texted me and then called me. She told me how they were having a wonderful time in expensive hotels in deluxe rooms. In May, my husband, flying to India, kissed me and told me he loved me. He called me on my birthday, apologizing that he could not be with me on that day, saying, "I gave you expensive gifts." And then I find out that my husband celebrated my birthday in the company of this woman. When I found out, I was terribly stressed. My legs were failing, the pain in my spine was getting worse, and I couldn't feel my leg. I cried all day long and could not believe it until the end. To my questions, my husband flatly denied that she had been there with him. He said I had made it all up and there had been no call. I filled out divorce papers and sent them to my husband, but he wouldn't sign them. I found a huge hard lump under my arm that looked like a tumor. I informed my son. He urgently ordered the best paid oncologist. Luckily, it turned out to be just stress. The lump eventually went away. And my husband was so engrossed there that he even forgot to call to see what the oncologist told me. My husband came back from his business trip and looked me in the eye and assured me that she wasn't with him in India. Until, by chance, I saw bills from India and hotel reservations. And her name was listed everywhere. I don't understand how you can look her in the eye and deny everything. What is she counting on? ruining me and my life. That he's telling her the truth, that he will be faithful to her, that she is the only woman he loves, that he and his wife have had nothing in common for a long time, that there is no love between us. But that's what men say to their mistresses. She's a smart woman, and she hardly believes that. Or does she just want to believe it and believe it? If a man, after living with his wife for 17 years in a happy marriage, did this to his, as he said, beloved and the only woman, when their passion dies down, and she, of course, did not give birth and will not give birth, then he will throw her out of his life very easily. It's hard to do it only the first time, then it becomes the norm. We have a history. We have a lot in common. In 18 years, we already have a common energy field. What's out there besides passion? There are advantages on her side now, like the newness of the relationship. Unfortunately, in 18 years, no matter how good sex is between spouses, the passion goes away. But it will also be gone after 2 to 3 years of being together there. The feeling of being in love will also go away quickly. Yes, at this point, I'm not quite healthy yet. Problems with my spine remain, and I need help and care. Not all men can go through this ordeal. I understand that it is an irritant in a relationship. Of course, it's more pleasant to spend time with a woman who can carry her own suitcase, go scuba diving, and clean up the house. I'm not allowed to lift weights, bend over, do loads. I always need help now. What is she thinking? And what is she counting on? Trying to destroy my marriage? There is the law of karma. And of course, even if she manages to get the status of my husband's wife, the payoff is huge. And it's made worse by the fact that she's trying to destroy my marriage at a time when I can't even physically be without support. It was only through my husband's support that I was able to recover. But the stress I've been under for almost 2 years has set me back far. Every time he goes to see her, I have renewed pain and I can't move or take care of myself. I lie in bed and can't even warm my own food. Sometimes I lie like this for days at a time, hungry, literally. When my husband calls me, I do not tell him what condition I am in. I don't want to grovel and beg for something. All the doctors said that stress in my condition only aggravates the problems. And I lie there and can't get away from the thoughts of how he spends his time with her, how and where he kisses her. I'm dying of jealousy. The only thing I can do is move my pain into the notes. That's how this confession came about. By destroying my marital relationship at this point, she deprives me of the opportunity to recover, deprives me of the support of my husband, and financial support too. She practically leaves me disabled and without means of livelihood. I don't know of any cases where someone has managed to build their happiness on another person's misfortune. Share your opinion about this story in comments. Also, click on these videos to watch about other shocking stories. See you soon.